like to welcome everyone to the West Mifflin Area School District Work Session Agenda Meeting held via Zoom. Meeting to begin at approximately 7:14. Roll call.
Ahern.
Here.
Alexandrov.
Here.
Bennett.
Here.
Blazevich.
Here.
Engler.
Here.
Kostelnik.
Here.
Marshall.
Present.
Addis. Muted, John.
Here.
And DeCenzo.
Here. Information items.
Mr. Solomon.
I'm sorry, I was having some trouble here with my computer. Informational items. Congratulations to high school science teacher, Mr. Justin Sickles, for being selected to participate in the American Chemical Society Science Coaches Program. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Board Secretary, Business Managers Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under Board of Directors, we have nothing currently. Under Finance, number 1 is real estate tax refunds, and number 2 is per board policy 701.1. We have to vote on disposing of books that were dated 2010 or prior. Ms. Haney did make numerous attempts to try to get interest in someone to buy them. There are companies that do that, but these books are so outdated that no one is interested in them. C, purchasing contracting. This is an MOA, Memorandum of Agreement with West Mifflin Federation of Teachers, which adds the 6th and 7th assistant varsity football coaches and removes a West Mifflin trainer and gymnastic coach in a collective bargaining agreement. And we had agreed to pay all the spring coaches that had not been paid the second half of their salaries. E-reports, we have the customary tax collectors report, treasurer's report, secretary receipts, student activities, attendance officers report, refund subtracted from expenditures. I only have 3 invoices at the moment. One's for legal tax service, and 2 are to pay Jonathan Hessen or reimburse them for the fees associated with those who residents who chose to pay their real estate taxes in its 3 installments. We have no capital projects, construction, expense recounts, and we have the bills payable, which includes a P card, cash disbursement, and for September. And nothing in H, requisitions. Customary, we did have 1 executive session this evening that'll be on, that's on the agenda. And that so concludes my report. Unless there's any questions related.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Esper. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Esper, can I set up a meeting with you to go over the P card statements, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Esper, how many P cards do we have left?
I have 1, and there might be 5 in the maintenance department. So, yeah, the maintenance. And we're working on setting up accounts with Lowe's, Home Depot, and where we purchase most of our stuff.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Esper? All right. District operations. We have nothing. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under student services and student activities, we have nothing for this evening. Under Billings and Grounds, it's recommended the board approve and ratify the list of building permits as presented, and it's the main gym, and it's for boys basketball conditioning. Under items 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, 11, we have nothing, sir.
Isn't there one under 7?
We'll add that from the recommendation, Mrs. Ahern.
Okay.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Souls? All right.
Can I ask, I'm
Um,
sorry, Mr. DeCenzo, can I ask a couple questions about how school is going to run on Monday, Mr. Souls?
We want to do that under the committee.
Oh, that, we could do that. Thank you.
All right, board president's correspondence, there is none at this time. Executive session discussion, we discussed personnel. Board reports takes us to the committees. Mr. Souls.
Yeah, we'd like to start first with our Safety and Transportation Committee. With the approval of the committee, we would like to add to the agenda the approval of bus routes and bus drivers after clearances and all credentials are checked.
Mr. Mattis, Mr. Bennett? Do you have a
That's fine,
problem?
as long
with-
as long as the credentials are there, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mattis?
And, as long as there's nothing that's holding up the credentials or any background checks, I'm fine.
Oh, you have our approval.
The next thing we had, just as an informational item, we are conducting our safety meetings. Mr. Solomon's been headlining those with Chief Pritchard, and we are updating all the school safety plans. Okay. Anything else under safety and transportation from the committee?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Bennett?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay. Under Billings and Grounds, we wanted to update you. We did have a case of vandalism at the restrooms at the baseball field, and the district authorities to get that handled. And then I believe Mrs. Wells is on hand here. She can do an update for phase 2 and phase 4 of the projects, and also trying to update some of our smoke detectors. Mrs. Wells?
Hey, everyone. Just wanted to update you on the field house. It's being restored by fire, water, disaster. So that should be finishing up this week. And I will check that tomorrow. I know they were just waiting for the ceiling tile to come in to be replaced for that. And phase 2, the air conditioning in all the buildings, of course, is up and running. Right now at Homeville, the heat is on, and you know, we did some troubleshooting with that, and we'll continue to do troubleshooting with that. The controls are still in progress, and we do not have control of our buildings yet. We do not have control of the heat or the air conditioning. So within the next couple of weeks, we will have control and be learning that system and doing walkthroughs to do a punch list for those with Joe Marion and ABM. Phase 4, Clara Barton bathroom stalls are being installed this week, as well as the lobby floor. The steps at Clara Barton have been torn out and are being replaced. I'm not sure when he's pouring that concrete, but I talked to him today, and it will be soon. The high school stadium concrete will start next week in the front of the ticket booth after we were supposed to have a game on Monday, but now it's been canceled. So we will start that probably Monday or Tuesday. Paving at the maintenance garage is finished. The gyms at the high school, the auxiliary gym is done, and the main gym is in progress of being painted. Today is the last volleyball game, so he's going to continue after today full speed. The Homeville classrooms are pretty much done. There was a couple little items that they were working on today to get the teachers' phone lines set up, and technology was working with them. I don't know if Steve has an update on that or not. And the gutters will begin probably within the next week or two at the Homeville gutter guards. Any questions?
Sandy, I have a question. We just got a preliminary report on the vandalism. It doesn't sound like it was to extent if it's already done. Can you just elaborate on what all the damage was?
Yeah, the
we
DN
probably don't want, we
yeah.
probably don't want to talk about that because it's under investigation.
10-4, thank you.
Hey, Sandy, there were some issues with the sidewalk at Homeville. Are they been corrected or going to be corrected?
Yeah, the sidewalk in the front of the building, there was a little issue at the beginning of the week. I think somebody tripped and fell. That was a very minor, where the concrete was pushed up a little bit. So it's already been ground and evened out. The little piece in the back that I think Mrs. Kostelnik knows about, and when they do the stadium concrete, they're going to fix that for us as well.
They're going to fix the sidewalk up at the stadium where it sits real high.
Correct. They're taking all of that out and redoing that. And then that little piece, as you come out of the back entrance at Homeville, they're going to fix that as well.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question about the lack of control. And is that every building, or was that just Homeville? I just didn't.
Yeah, we did controls. All of our energy management controls are being updated. So that's for the AC. It's for the whole system, for the whole HVAC system. That's also lighting controls, freezer, cooler, all those controls are being replaced. Our Siemens systems being replaced.
Right.
And that was the last part of that was actually in phase 1. And then when we decided to do air conditioning at Homeville, it got pushed into phase 2.
Right. Is that going to affect safely returning to the buildings for our students?
Oh, no, the buildings, it's all up and running. It's just that we haven't learned how to control the new controls. So right now they have them set. The company that's working on them, MEC, has them all set for us. So if we need anything, we just have to contact them.
Gotcha. I just didn't understand. I was thinking about my house. Like it was as if I couldn't control my furnace or something. It didn't.
Right. No, it's not runaway or anything. It's just that they have to control them for us right now, but they have set schedules.
I gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. And then do you know how long the front of the stadium concrete's going to take?
The ticket in front of the ticket booth?
Yeah.
I do not know. I would imagine not more than 2 weeks.
Okay.
I believe everything's going to be done. All the sports will be done. So that's what we were waiting for.
Okay.
Andy, can you elaborate on the safety controls that you put into place, the cleaning products, all of the things that you've been working on for everything for Monday?
Sure. It's we have all of the products that we need. I have a bunch of products. I've kept them at admin, and those products are being dispersed. I got middle schools to them today. The rest of them will be sent tomorrow to all the schools, and that's for the offices and for the head custodians. That's mask, shields, gloves, disinfectant. We have all of our disinfectants. All the teachers have been given buckets for their classrooms that contain a roll of paper towels, the disinfectant. They can have microfiber cloths if they want. They have the shields, the masks, the gloves in them, but we wanted to make sure we had extra for them. So we do have extra that the office will be given and keep on hand. So we have plenty. We have some that were donated. Mr. Souls got them from the Allegheny Intermediate Unit, so we have those to disperse. We got some from Allegheny Health Network today that Jane Rogers and Mr. Esper worked on getting, and that's all free that they donated to us. So we have plenty of those PPE equipment. We have aprons if they want to wear aprons. Those are all available.
Sandy, is this the same bucket that was given to them before with just 2 masks, or are we giving them more than 2 masks?
They can have more, and the office has them. And I took masks to the bus garage last week, so the bus garage has masks. They will not let a student on without a mask. So the students that are coming on the bus should have a mask when they enter the building. But we have more for the teachers. We have more gloves for the teachers. So we do have the thing that's hardest to get right now is the gloves, but I got more today. I'm expecting them every week coming in as much as we need them. So I don't believe there's a shortage on gloves or masks or
Is
any
there
of
hand sanitizers in the classrooms?
hand sanitizers are in the classrooms. The last of them were being installed today at the middle school. All the other schools have had them. We just were waiting on a couple for the middle school. So that's all installed too.
Is all the are all the fountains converted or shut off for water?
Not every single fountain has been converted. At least 2 in the elementary schools. I think there's 4 at Homeville, 2 at Clara Barton, high school, middle school. There's bottle fillers for the kids, and in the locker rooms at the high school, those have been converted to bottle fillers, and then the other ones have been shut off and capped off.
Mr. Souls, I have a quick question, and this is sort of related because it is cleanliness and safety. What's the process for students going into the building? How are they going to, is administration going to ensure that kids are properly masked up like they need to be? And what are the procedures if students take masks off when they're not supposed to? Because I think that we're required to have them keep their masks on at all times, correct?
They are to wear their mask at all times once they're in the building. Again, we're setting that up for them to be successful by having them at the bus for when they get on if they don't have one. So there's no reason why they wouldn't have one coming into the building. it's you know, it's a little bit different for an elementary kid compared to a high school kid when you tell them, hey, put your mask. We're talking about some young kids and so forth. There's going to be a lot of redirection. There's probably going to be a little bit of talking to them as well as coaching them up and keep the mask. But once it becomes an issue where it's persistent, our principals have sat down, they've come up with a process they'll take a student through where they'll call the parent, have parent contact, hey, your child needs to keep the mask on and so forth. But there are students that may not be wearing a mask at all due to possibly health reasons or other circumstances that they won't be wearing a mask while they're there.
And will that be properly documented, not just the parents saying it because they don't feel like fighting with their kid, as opposed to the student who may have a physical issue that they can't wear a mask?
Yeah, yes, it will be documented through the Healing Arts. Someone from the Healing Arts community will have to document that for us so that we can put that in the file. You know, and the district also ordered gaiters for every child. So every child, I believe there may be 2 to 3 weeks out, but everyone will have a Titan gaiter to wear.
Thank you.
Sandy, will the custodians continually wipe surfaces during the day?
Yes. As you know, that in some of the smaller buildings, there's only 1 custodian during the daytime, but we've gone through their schedules and modified some of them. You know, the first thing they'll do is get into their buildings, get them opened up, and do their normal work to open a building. But then after breakfast, they all have been instructed to wipe down the surfaces. As soon as that's over, they'll continue to go back through the buildings and wipe the surfaces of the handles and throughout the day, the bathrooms. And then, as you know, we have some new machinery that will spray the bathrooms down throughout the day. They've all been assigned bathrooms to do that at, and then just continue throughout the day. The heavy cleaning is going to be on Tuesday nights, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But all the other days, the disinfectants throughout the classrooms will be used that are EPA approved.
And Sandy, that's it in the evening.
In the
that
evening after the
cleaning will be.
after the teachers leave, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you're
And
welcome.
what about on Wednesdays? Will it be done during the daytime or?
Well, from my understanding, the teachers will still be in the building on Wednesdays, correct?
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so it'll be done in the evening. So it'll be
Okay.
done, like I said, Tuesdays evenings, Wednesday evenings, and Friday evenings.
Okay.
Anything else for Billings and Grounds? Okay, on to the finance. Mr. Esper, would you like to give an update on our audit and budget report?
You're muted.
Thank you, Tony. The audit is complete. We're just waiting for the final version to be released. There's nothing else we need to do, so it's just a matter of time. And what I've done actually today was I was looking at our local revenue. As you recall, during the budget proposal, there was a lot of guesses that had to be made of what the effect of COVID-19 would have on our local revenue sources. I decreased our local real estate tax to a 85% collection rate. The average was around 90%. I had decreased all other local revenue sources, earned income tax, business privilege tax, mercantile tax, local service tax by 10%. And I had decreased our admissions or amusement tax, which is Kennywood, by 20%. Through the first quarter, those numbers are actually tracking fairly spot on. So what I've seen is a approximate decrease in all those areas by 10%. Now the outlier is in those areas, and the real estate looks like it's probably going to come in pretty close to what we guessed. The problem gauging that is through the end of September is when the discount period is, and that's when all the mortgages pay their bills. So we're only about 300,000 below where I was at last year, which makes me feel pretty good. The problem is that we really won't know until the next 4 months as to who's actually just not going to pay the real estate taxes. I think we leaned about 730-ish properties last year, people who just didn't pay the real estate taxes. So that's yet to be seen. And Kennywood is going to be a huge miss. I said that was a guess. It all depended upon them opening and how they were going to operate. I've received nothing this year. I do have a call into them, and I know the borough received some. So I don't know why we haven't received anything, because they were open at least spotty for a little bit during the summer. But I budgeted 300,000 for that, and that's probably going to be off 290,000. So hopefully these other numbers continue to trend the way they are, and maybe end up being a little to make up some of that. I don't think we can make up all of it. And that's just something that we're going to have to work with on an expense side. I know I sound like a broken record talking about it, but this is something that's looked at every single day, and something that the administration, between Mr. Souls, Mr. Saul, and Ms. Wells, and the rest of the administration, that we work day in and day out to try to control costs, so we can end up this year in somewhat of a liquid financial position.
Any questions for finance? All right, moving on to athletic and activities. We're going to ask the committee to approve the administration to put the MOU with the teachers union on the agenda for approval, and that MOU is detailed as far as adding 2 football coaches to the supplemental list and removing 2 coaches who we no longer have sports for. So if the board or if the committee's okay, we'd like to add that to the agenda for Thursday. Also, the new crowd size stipulations came out from Governor Wolf's office. I shared that document with the board members. We will be following that here on out. We also talked to the high school principal as well as the athletic director, and we are going to put in place spectator expectations for all events that occur at the on campus. So there'll be some expectations when you come into a game, how we're going to act and how we're going to cheer on our teams to encourage winning and good sportsmanship.
Mr. Souls, real quick on spectators' expectation. Have we had any issues with any of the sporting events that we've had now with spectators coming, not wearing masks or anything like that?
We had 2 incidents, not so much with the wearing a mask. This is more along the line of spectator behavior. And we had 2 incidents. We had one at the volleyball game and one at a soccer game. So we want to sort of try to nip this before it gets out of control, Mr. Mattis.
Sounds good.
Souls, is there going to be like an escalation, like if a parent misbehaves, yells at the referee or whatever, that it's formally documented? I don't know from a legal standpoint, when you try to go to ban parents from going to something, but their behavior, they shouldn't be behaving the way they are. Is there going to be a process put in place?
If someone needs to be removed from the venue or the event, there will be a meeting held and a letter given to them and explain to them why they will not be coming back. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The incidences that occurred, were those students or people affiliated with students?
They were spectators and
Okay.
they weren't students.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. And the last thing we'd like the committee to approve us to put on the agenda is to add the Gold Club down at the middle school as a paid supplemental for $1,300 as per the CBA with the Federation. And what that is the girls only leadership development. And that's been in place now, and Mr. Solomon jump in because I know he's worked with them closely the last 2 years, Mr. Solomon?
Yes, sir. It's 2 ladies that work at the middle school. They created this to help some female positivity. They've had a minimum of 3 meetings last year. I think that each one had close to 100 young women, or even more so. This year, they've started again doing an Instagram with some different activities. I know that they really would like to progress with this, and they have a good game plan. So, I mean, it's just been a very fantastic event that they've been doing down there, and I'm anxious to see how it grows.
And both Mr. Solomon and I are supportive of this. This is something real positive for the young ladies down at the middle school. And again, it's a lot of good that they're doing for the school as well.
My daughter was part of that as well, and I have nothing but great things to say about it, and the activities that they provided for her in addition to regular school activities. It was monthly and very well worth it. So personally, I think this is a great idea.
Okay, so could I get the committee to approve us adding the MOU approval and the gold supplemental onto our
Yes.
agenda?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. All right, moving on to technology. And I believe we have Mr. Fort with us tonight too, our technology director. But just before he gets started, we did get the other 1,100 or 800 some devices. So our total of 1,100 and some odd devices are in. Ford Solution has got our devices imaged, and they'll be delivered back to the elementary schools tomorrow. I believe 3 pallets are going to Clara Barton and 5 to Homeville. And when the students come back, they will be receiving their new devices. So that's a real plus and a positive for the district. And as the deployment will go, they will get their new computers as they return to school, hopefully on Monday. Those who don't, we will set up times that they could come pick them up as we did before. Mr. Fort?
Yes, just to echo what you just said, Mr. Souls, that is absolutely correct. We got the final remainder of our shipment from Dell in, the 816 that we were still had outstanding. All those have now been imaged. As you said, they're going to be delivered tomorrow to the elementary schools for disbursement on Monday. My plan for that is to hand them out in homeroom to get everything inventoried at that point. So as to use the best I think the best practice here would be to actually take the technicians down to the elementary schools and actually engage there at the ground level, getting these machines in the Group A kids' hands on Monday. And I believe Thursday is Group B, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so now that all the machines are correct and imaged up and ready to go, we can see how it goes on Monday. Of course, you know, as you do anything, there's always a stumbling block. There's always a possibility to learn something new that you didn't know that you needed to do. So we're going to get everything done on Monday. That's probably going to be about I think there's 750 kids total. I think we came to that conclusion in the elementary schools, both places.
That sounds correct.
Yeah, so I figure that we'll probably have at least 300 out on Monday. And as you said, we'll have to shore up the deficits there. Any student that doesn't have a district device at this point, we're going to have to get with them to make sure they get one of the new machines as well. We've also been doing a lot of back-end maintenance. I know I've been doing a lot of back-end maintenance to ensure that our arrival on Monday is as smooth as possible. Schoology has been giving us some issues. There's been a lot of downtime with that. That's kind of a subject beyond our control. But as far as everything else is going, we're upgrading our Power School system Saturday. So I'm probably going to get to engage in that a little bit. So we'll have some new features moving forward on Monday morning for our kids to arrive in there for student tracking, things like that. Staff machines. I know that the staff has been asking for new machines for a while. We finally came to a workable solution on that, and we ordered 198 of those, I believe it was. I haven't got an estimated delivery date on those just yet, but I anticipate they will be nowhere near as long in the tooth as the student machines were, because they're a lot less in demand.
Any questions for technology?
Steve, are you going to have extra help on Monday?
I am aiming to have as much help as I can get. I'm trying to wrestle at least a couple more guys from Ford out of here to help engage on the ground level to get this done. I'm going to use the homeroom teachers as much as humanly possible. Since, you know, it's a naturalized process at that point. All the kids are going to be in there. I figure if we can get a couple technicians to go room to room even, we can get everything handed out, get everything inventoried into the system. Because, you know, we have to check out the machines to the kids, right? You know, there's a process for that. It's not too hard. And I was actually thinking about doing a spreadsheet too, to give to the teachers where they could record the student asset tag and student number. And even if we don't have time to do it right then, we could do it thereafter. So, I mean, that was something I was kicking around. But yeah, we're going to try to get some help in that respect.
Steve, will you be back down there Thursday for the second group?
Absolutely. I'm there every day, except when I have to be off site to take care of something else. But I absolutely will be engaging on both days to make sure that it's done and it's done properly.
Thank you.
Steve, have we tested these devices?
Rigorously, Matt, rigorously. And when I say rigorously, I mean it. I've just about exhausted everything that could possibly go wrong at this point. I got tripped up when we got the first batch of Dells in for the middle school. I got tripped up with a microphone issue out the gate. There was a software driver from the factory that had an issue with it, that the microphone just didn't work. So it turns out that uninstalling that software driver and letting Microsoft actually take the wheel was the right choice, and it almost never is. So we fixed that, made sure all the cameras work, make sure Teams works. At this point, I if there's something else coming, I don't know about it.
Your Schoology upgrade that you're doing on Saturday, what's the estimated?
Our school.
Yeah, Power School. Matt, the estimated downtime window for Saturday is 10 hours plus. And reason being is the Oracle database that basically is the heart and soul of the machine has to be upgraded from an older version to a newer one. And I wanted to do this over the summer, but we just didn't have the infrastructure to do it at the time. That was prior to the Terra switch move. And it takes 10 hours plus on a healthy machine. And what we had before, it was just a recipe. So we're doing that now.
And do you have rollback procedures ready in case something happens?
Absolutely. I'm gonna create snapshots in VMware so that way I can roll it back with a drop of a hat. I'm also going to create a traditional backup image as well.
Okay.
Mrs. Ahern, did you have a question?
Don't a lot of teachers access Power School too, and parents?
Absolutely, Miss Ahern. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out a bulletin to both students and parents tomorrow as soon as I can.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. So
yeah, so
you're
that's
ahead of me.
coming out.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm actually going to create an all-call group for students, like we have the all staff at the school there, and I'm going to send that out synchronously as 2 email chains, and I'm just going to let them know what to expect. Honestly, Saturday, I don't see a lot of people logging in on Saturday. But there's going to be some, but still, they have to know this down so that way they don't panic.
That's good. Thank you very much.
No problem.
What's your maintenance window hours? What hours are you expecting to be unavailable?
Matt, we are going to go from 7 a.m. local time till it's done. So far, support engineers say this is going to be approximately a 10-hour job with the Oracle backend. So I would say 7 to 4, 7 to 5 is probably pretty fair.
Yeah, maybe just make sure you put that in the communication. I just don't know who's expecting to have to prepare what for Monday, and if they're expecting to be able to access the system for Monday.
Correct. And that was a concern of mine as well, and that's why I've been pushing to get it done ASAP. But obviously, we can't do it on hours because that'd completely kill us.
Correct.
Okay. Any more questions for technology? Mr. Ford, you also want to update the board with the new routers that you put in the schools?
Oh, the wireless access points, absolutely. So we've gone through the elementary schools, and actually the middle school is the only one I haven't swapped over yet. We put new access points in the elementary schools. Homeville, I think 18 access points went in, and we actually have implemented a new control system for the existing ones as well. It's a lot more robust, a lot more refined, and we're seeing a great deal of improvement in our Wi-Fi coverage in the district buildings now. And that's something we've been struggling with for a while. It's not perfect. There's still some tweaking that needs to be done here and there, but by and large, it's a great deal better than what it was. We've also got the iBoss situation well in hand at this point, and that was kind of part and parcel for the original calamity that happened in September. So we've got that taken care of. Any issues that we were having with that have now been solved.
Is that, can you elaborate a little bit? Like what do we have to change to make that, to make sure that doesn't happen ever again?
Oh, well, so what had originally happened, and I'm not sure how or why, is someone had hard-coded an IP address, like a regular, and then you guys probably don't know 100% what this is, but let's just say an IP address is like a phone number, right? And they're not supposed to change, but every once in a while you do have to change one. So rather than put it in as a host name like google.com, they put it in as a number, like a phone number. And unfortunately, our cloud provider had changed their infrastructure without telling us or really anyone else. And that server simply ceased to exist, which caused the initial problem. So now we have it set up as a DNS name, which is like going to google.com, where they can have any number of servers that have IP addresses there. And it doesn't matter how many times they change them, it's always google.com to us.
And when you say that was hard-coded, it was hard-coded in the actual laptops.
Yeah, it was hard-coded into the actual software client for iBoss, our web filtering and content management software, which effectively basically cut them off from the internet entirely once that service quit running. And that's kind of by design. You don't want the kids to get around that system. So it's deeply ingrained in every machine that we put out. So the Achilles heel in this point was that it was their means of accessing the internet. And when that server went offline because the vendor pulled it offline, it basically shut everything down.
And iBoss, what does that service provider do for us?
They do all the web content filtering and content control on the kids' computers. It keeps them out of the bad reaches of the internet that we have to legally prohibit them from going to. Now, I did take some steps, however, for academic-related sites. So if the iBoss would fail in the future, it would not filter a proxy for Schoology, Microsoft, or anything like that. So all the core academics are not filtered.
And I think we're legally required to have a filtering provider if we're providing it to the student. Right.
We are legally obligated to do that, yes. So and that's kind of the double-edged sword. You have to have something really strict on there to keep people safe. Not saying it's foolproof either way, but it's definitely been fixed at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Technology. All right. Moving on down to the Educational Committee. First item, curriculum cycle. We like to bring to the committee to let you know that we're working on putting together a curriculum cycle. We're looking at a 6-year cycle that will hit all the content areas, and we'll do the electives in the 1 year. Then in the 6th year, it'll go back to the first one again. Apparently, we're running a lot with older materials that we need to start updating and looking into bringing those articles or those pieces of books and texts up to current standards. So we would like to propose that to the committee.
That sounds good to me. Matt or Debbie, any ideas about it?
Oh, it sounds good that we recycle and keep up to date.
Will you have a plan available? I guess like which subjects or departments are going to be at which stage? I'm not asking for it now. I'm just saying, will it be available for us to take a look at?
It'll go by department or by content area. So it'll be K through 12. Year 1 will be math. Year 2 will be ELA. Year 3 will be science, social studies, then the electives and so forth. Okay. So it'll be that way. And normally, at the elementary, it's a little bit different because you're sort of buying a core product to go through the, K through 5. Then where you're looking more content specific at the high school. So we'll probably look more at publishers at that point and look at the texts that are available as well as the online material to supplement those texts.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
We'll definitely, that'll definitely come with a line item within the budget. So we'll actually move curriculum money to that so we can make sure that's a yearly thing and we can keep up on that. Also, we're going to ask the committee if for their approval to put on the agenda our reentry plan as coming back in a hybrid mode starting the October 19th, where students are divided A through L and M through Z, and coming in 2 days a week, Wednesday being the remote learning day, and then the second group, the M through Z, will come through on Thursday and Friday, and our principals divided those up into the blue and gold cohorts.
I have one question. I think originally it was A to K. Did adding L kind of even out those sections, class sections? Actually, I had understood that a lot of those were pretty out of balance.
What it actually does, Mrs. Ahern, and one of the driving forces was the busing.
Okay.
A through L is a pretty good divide.
Okay.
Where both sets are equal as to what we're being picked up on those 4 days. As far as the kids coming in, if there is a little bit out of balance, with only half of them being there, we're going to be able, and the parents hopefully understand, there may be some moving around to make sure all the sections are even.
Okay.
Do we have orientation date and times for our 9th graders and the fourth graders going into the middle school for the first time. Like, is that published somewhere? I've been looking for it and I can't find it anywhere.
I saw it somewhere.
I know Mrs. Baker has put something out, and maybe Mr.
Yeah,
Salt
that's what I saw.
jump in on the high school. I have not seen Mr. Lick if he's put anything out yet, but they were both. I think all the grades or all the principals were interested in running some type of orientation. for
I think
From what
middle
I
school-
read, tomorrow is fourth grade and ninth grade, and kindergarten
Right.
is not going to have one. They're going to kind of give them an orientation when they get there.
Do you know what time, Bill?
It's all day
Um,
long.
I can pull it up for you. I think it was 1:30 to 3. I can send it over to you. I have it on the computer here.
I believe you're right, Mr. Bennett. I believe they scheduled those after the teachers have left the building, just to cause fewer contacts.
Okay. We should probably get that sent out. I don't know.
I thought they were doing it like all day long based on the child's last name.
I believe and again, I'm not in the district right now, but Mr. Saul, if you could jump in, I don't know if you've been in contact with Mrs. Baker and Mr. Lick.
Both of them told me that they were going to make all calls to the corresponding parents. Both the fourth and the ninth grade are going to be short, a lot shorter than normal. It's going to be more of a tour and an exposure. I do not believe that they are allowing parents in.
That's what I read.
Because of number wise. Now, I know that Sharna at the 4-5 building, she's anticipating a lot larger of a number than what Chad is at the high school. So she wanted to organize it a little bit more because she didn't want to have, a long line where people had to wait. So that was just her organizing the numbers a little bit better. Now, for the kindergarten, when I talked to those principals, that was a little bit different because when you have more of a kindergarten tour / orientation, it's more parent dominated. And with the parents not being allowed in the buildings at this point, they just, both Dr. Hanna and Mr. Capana and Dr. Plique had informed me that they were going to do more of it, more of an orientation on the first day per se in the building. And then when that relaxes a little bit more, then at that point we can look to make additional parents allowed in. So, but that's the reason why to answer your question, I'm sorry, I got a little bit off track there, but to answer your question, Ms. Ahern, that's why it disappeared that the 4-5 schedule was a little bit longer than the high school, and that was for organizational purposes.
So is it after? What time is it tomorrow?
None of them are taking place while the instruction is going on. So
okay,
we're both after 12:30. I believe that they were. I don't quote me on that, but I'd have to double check my notes. But I think the 4-5 was somewhere about 12:30 to the end of the day, and the high school was somewhere around 1:30 to the end of the day.
And are the students coming up from Duquesne, are they going to have a time, or is it the same thing? I think that we need more clear communication to these students and their families so that they have an opportunity to become familiar with a new environment. It's going to be stressful already, A, because there's a pandemic, and B, because these students have probably never been in these buildings, at least not through every single hallway. And I think it's only fair that we have somebody show up and show them around a little bit, and that be done with enough time so that somebody could plan to do it. And it's just, tomorrow's Friday. I just think that it's too little, too late. I've been looking all week, looking for these, when's orientation? When is this? And I haven't seen it.
Well, I can tell you right now, I just found in my notes, in the high school tomorrow is definitely 1 to 2:30, and Mr. Lick sent an all call out about it today.
He did send an all call, I was going to say, Matt. And it was my understanding that the teachers would still be there for guidance, but I don't know if that's correct or not. So
The teachers will be in the building. They will not be teaching at that time. That's their non-instructional time during the day. And as far as the Duquesne students, Mr. Blazevich, they have been in the building because of the orientation that we had previous last school year for them to come in and check it out.
Was that all call yesterday? Oh. Hey, Steve, my all calls, I still don't get the voicemail. So I don't know what we need to do to fix that. You said it's the Sprint customers that get the 5 seconds of silence voicemail. Well, that's why I didn't get the all call and didn't know that the orientations were happening. So I apologize for the frustration. I do have it on my phone, but I just don't get the voicemails for whatever reason.
Mr. Souls, can you tell me what the remote day will look like?
The remote day will be a little bit different. The students are going to leave roughly about 2 hours early. Then that last portion of that day will be the remote learning session that the teacher will provide. And then on Wednesday, of course, they're all remote. So it's going to change a little bit. So it's not going to be the 4 hours they normally got in the morning. It'll be now shifted to roughly the 2 hours at the end of the day.
Okay, and can you explain the book bag policy?
Yes, we're not allowing book bags into the building at this time just because of the surface and the touching and the contacts. So students are, females are allowed a small purse to bring in, as well as the kids will not be using their lockers or their cubbies just because of those surfaces and so forth and the touching. So we're asking basically all the students will need to bring is their computers.
And when it rains or snows or anything in the wintertime, how do we protect them?
Well, they're going to wear their coats and so forth, but then we'll put the coats on the back of the chairs or so forth, or have a designated type hooks to hang them somewhere. We're just. I think she's talking.
I meant the computers.
Oh. At that time, hopefully it's over and we can put the either that or we'll have to look into start buying
Carry cases.
The carrying cases.
Okay, my next question is, there's water bottle filling stations. Are children allowed to bring water bottles?
They may bring their water bottles. I believe even some PTA's group has got water bottles for some kids. But if it's just a regular water bottle, it can't be opened. It needs to come into the building sealed.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question on that. I have a computer. I use a computer every day at work. I still have a paper notebook and a pencil that, just for expediency's sake, take notes in. Are we saying that our students are not allowed to bring a notebook and paper and a pencil?
They could bring some of the supplies like that, Mr. Blazevich. We're not saying, solely, but, we're trying to limit the stuff that comes into the building.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, what was that orientation time again for the high school? I'm sorry.
1 to 2:30.
Thank you.
Mr. Souls, I have another question of questions that come up, talking to parents. I think there's some confusion about the 2-hour early dismissal because we're telling people that teachers are going to be preparing for the virtual learning, and people that are keeping their children at home are thinking that their class day doesn't start till 1 o'clock. And I don't see it that way. I think they're going to be on the same schedule, but can you clarify that the remote learners are starting at 8 o'clock, not 1 o'clock?
No, you're correct in saying it. The remote learners will be working starting at 1 o'clock. Unless we can get our live stream and we're set up to be able to live stream out of the classroom, in which we're looking into doing that. But as far as that, it'll actually be the in-person learning from the start of the day to their dismissal, which varies depending on what school you're in, of course, until the end of then the 2-hour early release. And then those 2 hours would be the remote time.
So the 2 hours after the early release, that's for teachers to answer questions, prepare for the next day, stuff like that?
That's for the teachers to connect with those students who are doing the remote learning.
Okay.
What's the expectation of a student, high school student, for example, who has 8 periods, 8 different subjects? What's the expectation in the afternoon around the content and the amount of instruction time they're going to get in 2 hours across 8 subjects? So that's my first question. My second question is, how is attendance being tracked for those students who are only showing up in the afternoons?
To answer your first question, those teachers will post those lessons. That'll be up to the student to work through those lessons. They may not be able to do it all within those 2 hour, that 2 hour frame time. So they may have to extend their day.
Okay.
As far as the attendance procedures will stay the same for those students who are in remote or not in school or in the A, B, or B, A group or B group with doing the attendance.
So they log in to take for attendance purposes. And I'm just curious because every subject takes attendance, I'm pretty sure. And I was just curious around how that would work on a 2 hour window of.
Well, every subject takes their own attendance, and that's for the teacher's record and for their liability. We take it as a district as an accountability when we report back to the state.
Okay.
Are you done, Matt?
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I just wanted it. I didn't mean it that way.
You know how you meant it.
I'm sorry, Matt. I didn't mean it that way.
No. I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, I wanted to ask my question to say, what's lunch going to look like?
The lunch for the elementary, K through 3, they will get a hot school lunch like they normally would. 4 through 12, they will get a grab and go. I'm sorry, K through 5 will get the hot lunch as elementary students. They'll eat within the building. 6 through 12, they get a grab and go lunch at the end of the day because their dismissal time's right about 12 o'clock.
And then they'll eat in the gymnasium. Am I correct for elementary?
The elementary has desks set up in their gymnasiums for social distancing for the students to eat. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Matt.
Are we still going to have lunches available for the students who are schooling from home?
Yes, they'll still be available, but there are no remote locations. Secondary students will pick theirs up behind the middle school, and then both of the elementaries will have their lunches if someone wants to come up and get theirs there.
Thank you.
Mr. Souls, I apologize as we didn't discuss this prior, but in regards to the teachers, since they're going to be in the classroom and then they're also going to be handling the remote students, are they going to have planning time? Is there going to be enough coverage? I don't know if we have extra teachers that can work with the remote students while they're in the classroom. It just seems like we're stretching everybody thin.
Well, they still get their prep time throughout the day and so forth. They'll still get that time. If we can utilize, if we can see that there's a teacher who, especially at the secondary level, I'll speak to that, not being utilized because their students aren't there that day. Maybe they got more of their students on the B schedule than the A schedule. We can utilize them to help with the remote situation as well. With the elementary, everyone will be on there, and maybe we can use the super subs. Not that we would use the super subs as remote learners for the remote learners.
For busing, are we encouraging people to drive their students? If who can?
We didn't encourage it, but the parents always have that option. As the parents, they have they're allowed to do whatever they want. They're the parents, so if they want to drive their kids, that's fine with us.
Mm-hmm. And then when I saw the plans, it was 2 students per seat. So when I'm looking at a bus, on the left-hand side, there's a seat. We're saying we're going to put 2 students in that seat?
Yes, it's 2 students to a seat.
As opposed to more than 2?
Well, when school normally runs, the elementary would normally possibly have 3 kids to a seat.
Okay, I understand.
In regards to busing, Mr. Souls, I know we don't have a transportation director, but is there somebody that's gonna be on hand Monday to address this? Because I know Steel Center switched up their schedule as well. The kids that were going, the North kids were going Mondays and Tuesdays, and the South kids were going Thursdays and Fridays. Now it's switched and it's A through L and then M through Z. So is there going to be somebody on hand to kind of?
Yeah, that's going to be an issue because those students who'll be coming to school, they'll go now alphabetically. So they'll be at the high school and they'll leave straight from the high school to Steel Center.
But is there an individual, an admin or somebody that's going to be?
Mr. Solomon and I are both handling or working with the transportation.
Thank you.
Mr. Souls, so just like a random, I guess, example or scenario would be, say a student doesn't make it to school and they're sick, they have a sick day and then they come back. Are they going to be monitored or told to maybe go get tested if they had a flu-like symptoms or something like that? Are we doing anything precautionary for students and staff and teachers coming into the building, checking temperatures or anything like that, just to make sure that we're on our game and making sure that everyone's as I guess safe as possible?
Well, what we'll do is we'll self-monitor. We ask the parents to check, make sure the kids don't have any symptoms, and if they are, to keep them home and so forth. As far as we cannot force anyone to get tested. We can encourage it, but we can't force it. So we'll monitor those. We also have the quarantine room. If someone is feeling symptoms, to get them removed from the classroom as quick as possible and out of the building into an isolation area where they would not affect other kids. So, as far as that goes, we're hoping the parents use their best judgment, and again, it's hard to tell because of so many symptoms look like something else with the allergies now during the fall and so forth. Your kid gets up with a runny nose or a little bit of a fever, you're going to have to make that decision to keep them home.
Yeah, I guess my concern would be, like you said, a kid that has allergies or we're starting to come into the flu season where someone might wake up with a head cold. They come into school and someone sneezes or coughs, and then that becomes a huge ordeal or something because you know how some kids could act different towards that, and just making sure that we don't have any issues or we have a plan in place for that.
No, they'll be sent down to the nurse's office. Nurse office follow through, phone call home, and at that time the parent can say, no, my son or daughter has allergies right now, and
Very good, thank you.
That's a good question. Those are really good questions, Johnny. Do students or parents have to disclose to us if they ever test positive? Like, how do we find out? I see these schools on the news or whatever, so-and-so has 5 cases. How do we get told that? Because it feels like that's health information, and I don't know if they're required to tell us unless it's through.
Yeah, that's like a gray area almost. Like you're getting into like someone's like health.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't.
So what's our
documentation wise?
Yeah. What's our responsibility, and how do we find out?
Well, again, that's a HIPAA. So you're dancing around HIPAA a little bit. We've been very fortunate. The cases that we had in the district, they have self-reported to us. I think also the other plan would be the health department would contact us. As our last episode we just had, Ms. Solomon and Mr. Esper and I, we worked with the health department, and we know the person down there who's handling that, and they would probably contact us as part of the contact tracing.
And will we have a process so when we do find out, because there's going to be, we're gonna have cases. Like I think it's inevitable based on the news and the things that we see in the world today. Will we have a process to notify our parents and our staff members? And then is there going to be a plan in place for when we make decisions to go back to remote learning, and like what populations of the school district would go back to remote learning? For example, if something was just in an elementary school, the high school, as long as there wasn't any contact tracing to a sibling, will we just take care of that one building and have them remote learn for a period of time? I'm just trying to understand, like, do we have all of these plans in place for responses to these cases when they do come about?
We do. It's the we've been utilizing the intermediate put out earlier this in the summer, the decision tree on the different scenarios and how to work through them. So we use that as our basis. As far as one school having it and not the other, yes, we would go remote learning with the one school and not the other, if, as you said, if it's not contact traced, and that would be an all call, as well as getting that information to the parents as quickly as possible, so they understand what's going on. You got to be. You can't give out all the details within the letter. They would just understand their notification that there was a situation and this is what we need to do. Anything else? We also set up with our, there's a COVID-19 question email that was attached to the informational sessions. We have been getting emails, and the principals have been answering those back to the parents. So we've been in correspondence that way as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, last thing I have for the educational committee is we developed a literacy team, and I got to thank Mr. Solomon and our principals and our team members. With the students coming back, reading is very important to all the students. So we developed a literacy team, and we're starting to look at how we're going to start benchmarking students as they come back to school and see where they're at, see where their interventions need to be, where they need support, and so forth. So I'm asking the education committee if we could go ahead and put the purchase of Acadience benchmarking. This has been around for years. It's actually used to be called Dibbles.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a benchmarking for reading. They also have one for math as well. And it's a per student cost. And I believe it's around about $15 per student. And we'd like to start that at the K-3 building. So we can start benchmarking in the literacy and the math. And then we'd also like to buy a supplemental to literacy intervention called Haggerty's. And that's for the K1 and 2. And that comes with a booklet, and it works with the students on pronunciation and phonemic awareness and so forth. And it's data, research-based data, proven to be a nice supplemental for those age levels.
I think that's a great idea. That's been a concern of mine as long as I've been in West Mifflin, that sometimes kids just get moved along in the early grades and they never really get the extra help to catch up. I think this could be wonderful.
Yeah, well, and the team's goal here, our literacy team goal is to get a plan in place and start putting interventions with disabilities or deficits. So we know if a kid has phonemic awareness, needs support there, we know what intervention to use and when to implement it and so forth, and start to build back that, right now they call it win time, but it's that enrichment time where those students would focus in on whatever deficit they're experiencing within the reading and the math.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Very good. That's all I have for the education committee. Policy committee. We like to take to the policy committee. I know we sent out a lot of policies to take a peek at, but our first one is 113, that's special ed, and there's 5 policies there. They're all updated. They were reviewed by Mrs. Silvis, got her stamp of approval. I'd like to take those first 5 for a first reading.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I mean, I guess Gina or Judy, did you guys read over them too? No.
I did.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with moving forward with those ones.
Okay.
I am too.
Yep.
Okay. The second one we're bringing up is the care of school property. And what we don't need that for a first reading yet, but we want to put that on your radar. We need to add the verbiage that policy is going to pertain to we're going to put verbiage in there to address the student debt situation. So students just don't walk away with owing money, books, and computers, especially technology now that since we're providing it to everyone. So we're going to add some verbiage to that to cover student debts.
Okay. Yep.
The only thing I would ask Mr. Souls is, could you send me a copy of those policies?
Sure.
Thank you.
We have policy 323, 423, and 523. We did update that, and that's the tobacco, and it includes a lot of the verbiage with vaping, and it also becomes all campuses become non-smoking. And we'd like to ask the committee to approve that for a first reading.
Mr. Souls, I think we had this come up last year, I think around this time. Krisha maybe be able to talk about that. But this was like one of the first things we talked about last year once we all got on here. We came to the conclusion that we were leaving it as it was. I think we added in stuff for the vaping, right, Krisha?
That's my understanding, Mr. Souls. That was brought up before it was sent to committee. I did provide the PDE, smoke-free campus, and we added the vaping language, and the committee did not recommend the smoke-free campus.
So you want to leave the policy as is then?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Ms. Aaron, Ms. Englert, I don't know what you guys feel about that, if we want to revisit that and maybe talk about that again, but I wouldn't blindly just put it on for next week. I think we should sit down and discuss that again.
I think our concern was if somebody adult was going to have a cigarette, did they have to get in their car and drive away to have a cigarette? That was kind of why we weren't in agreement about no smoking.
I believe Dr. Hoover raised the issue of enforcement and was concerned about how that policy would be.
Right.
That's what it was. It was enforcement, especially with spectators and parents being at events and such.
Well, that's fine. I just thought it looked pretty odd, people smoking over by the dumpster during a football game.
Yeah, Dr. Hoover didn't recommend that we go that route, unfortunately.
All right, we'll drop that one.
What's our current superintendent's recommendation?
Yeah.
Because the football stadium is smoke-free.
No, there's a smoking area over by the dumpster.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, Tony, but I think what we talked about last time was just having designated areas where they would be okay and it wouldn't be an issue. I think whenever you go completely smoke-free, like we were talking about, was trying to hold people accountable and how that would be enforced.
No, I understand. There's definitely concerns there. I think the other aspect of it was a safety issue. You know, if you have employees, maybe go out the back or side door or prop it open.
Yeah, I think that was part of it too. People
prop it
go into
open.
the wrong area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Mr. Mattis would probably like to hear Mr. Souls' interpretation.
I think tabling it at this point would be appropriate.
I agree. I think we could revisit it for sure. I just wouldn't want to put it on there next week right away and then we not know what's going on.
All right. So. I'd like to recommend to the committee that we purchase the ARs, or the administrative regulations, from PSBA. And what that is a set of documents that follows all the policies and gives us forms and inventory lists that we can utilize to help keep our policies up to date and track what we're doing within the policies.
If I may interrupt, I just think that Mr. Mattis, before you were on the board, I don't remember who was on policy, but that was brought up several times in a prior policy. Ms. Ahern, I think you perhaps were on the policy committee at the time. And when that was brought up, I believe the previous board had recommended that they purchase that. So
I wasn't on policy then.
I believe that I do recall that at one point that was on there. I don't know if that was before Mr. Esper's time as well, but I believe that Mr. Smar and Dr. Hoover have requested that we purchase those, and I did make that recommendation.
Is that like a thing we have to renew? Like that's why we're doing it again or something? Like it's like why do we have to do it again if it was already done before?
I think it was approved, but I don't know if it was actually ever purchased.
I don't believe it was ever purchased.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if that's the recommendation, I mean, I don't have a problem with that if that was approved at one point before. I think that makes sense.
I agree.
Okay. It was also in our audit, they recommend we get a fund balance policy. So we're going to move forward with the committee's approval to get that policy drafted. And when we do that, we just call PSBA and we ask for it.
What's that? Yeah. What's it state?
Then Mr. Esper could chime in as well. It tells us we need to keep an X amount or a percentage within our fund balance as we move forward.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a good guideline. You know, I'm sure it's, you know, but it'll be there as a policy so you can reference it.
I would just say for like any of these, like anything we do future wise, like when we change something, just like Krisha said before, making sure that we include her and we have her input too before we start making changes for like for the agendas and stuff like that. That way we're legally in within our guidelines, you know what I mean? Just making sure that nothing slips through the cracks or anything like that.
Oh, absolutely. And all these policies come from PSBA. They're coming from PSBA. Okay. And then the last thing we wanted to ask for is if we could pursue looking to get our whole policy manual updated. As we've been going through this, and Mr. Saul can pop in if he needs to, I believe over 60% of our policies are over 20 years old.
That's correct. Over 60% of our policies, glancing at them, are from September 1992.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think most of them are older than me. So, yeah, we could definitely revisit that.
92 was a great year.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So if we can, we'll get a price from PSBA as to what that would cost to update that manual.
So I'm good with all that. Judy and Gina, if you guys have anything to add to that, any questions?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, that's it for committee meetings.
All right, solicitors report.
Thanks. My report was given in an executive session, and I will work with Mr. Souls this week to make sure that we speak on these policies.
Thank you. Any old business? New business?
Mr. President, I would just like to, for those who are watching online, the meeting will be held next week live in the middle school auditorium. We are working diligently to have that set up, make sure everything is working well. Everybody will be social distanced, and you know, providing nothing crazy happens between now and then, we'll be finally live again.
Joe, for that, will we have a plan that we could release to the public maybe like next week, like Tuesday, Wednesday or something? That way everyone knows what to expect when they get there, what masks, social distancing, like where to park, what doors to enter, stuff like that.
I mean, the doors enter will be at the auditorium. We could, you know, put signs on the doors. Obviously, no one will be able to come in without a mask, and then there'll be designated seats once you get in there. I think it's you know, something that will have people instructing people as they arrive, but you will need a mask. So,
Mr. Esper, is there an occupancy cap for the auditorium?
I believe the governor's, we're at 40% capacity, total room, so I would highly doubt that we would exceed that.
I think it's 20%. That's what the attachment was that we got with the
It's
committee.
It's 20%, Mr. Esper, I believe, and it's also, even at 20%, you still have to be able to social distance 6 feet apart.
Chris,
Okay.
what happens if more people come into that and there's not enough room, theoretically, if something happens? Should we plan to go to the high school auditorium since it's bigger, or?
Well, unfortunately, if we exceed the capacity, we have to end the meeting, or you could adjourn, or you could just postpone the meeting, take a small recess, and possibly notify everyone to move to the high school. I don't know if that would be the best thing possible, but you cannot proceed when you are denying people access to the meeting. Now, I know some districts, what they're doing is if you have public comment, they're asking you to come and then leave, and they're also live streaming the meeting. There's a lot of options you have there, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe we still have a Zoom link or something for people that can't attend or wish not to, but they still want to be a part of it.
And then you only have people that want to do public comment come in person. What they were doing is they were having those people sign up ahead of time, so we had an idea or an estimate of how many people would be coming to the meeting.
And then anybody who couldn't, any overflow could submit their public comments and we just read them.
No, public comment would all be in person. Then you would come and you would submit your comment. We would offer a Zoom option, obviously, because if you're not giving public comment, perhaps you just want to stay home on Zoom. That way there was both options for people. That way people didn't feel compelled to come to the in-person meeting if they had no intention of speaking.
Well, we have a week to figure it out.
Does anybody else have anything? All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.